Hi, I'm Dom Famularo, and I'm back for Mapex Live. This is so great to have this opportunity on Mondays at this time to come by and showcase different artists. I have had so many great artists, and today I've got the wonderful Sam Landa from Montreal. Sam, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, Dom. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
This is great that we had met in February of this year at the Drumeo Festival, and you do some writing for. So, are you like content manager? Is that what your title is?
Yep.
And for Drumeo, so you are able to sit down with several artists and hear their story and write some information about them. So I want to get into that later on, but that sounds very, very exciting.
It's a dream job, honestly. I'm so lucky.
Pretty powerful when you think about it, the fact that, and you're in Montreal and you're able to do it from Montreal, though you were out at the festival in Vancouver, which was an incredible festival. We'll talk about that later on too. I want to first get into your playing drums. You've been with Mapex a couple of years now. I want to hear the story about what got you involved in playing drums.
Yeah, I think I've always been into rhythm. I started with classical piano when I was around 3 years old. Pretty much everyone in my family learns classical piano at some point. My great grandmother was a concert pianist, and everyone kind of learns. So I was already playing piano, and I was looking to do something a bit different. And I remember, I think I was around 11 years old, and you have the opportunity to join band in school, and they didn't have piano in concert bands. So it was basically a question of, all right, well, out of the instruments we have, what do you want to do? And at the time I thought, well, I want a challenge. I'm looking for something where I can, I don't know, I guess use the coordination I've built with piano. So it was drums was one of the things that the teacher actually suggested. And I said, yeah, it sounds great. And we had a full drum kit at school, which was fairly rare for elementary schools at that time.
Yeah.
So I could access a full kit. I didn't need to have one at home. I just needed a practice pad, sticks, and the agreement to let me learn was basically, well, we're not getting you a kit at home. You're not, let's agree, you're not getting drums at home. And I'm like, yeah, sure, that's totally fine. Yeah, I won't ask for drums at any point. that's how it started.
So in piano, were you taking piano lessons when you first got involved in?
Yeah, I took piano lessons for I guess maybe 8 years. And
wow.
Those were private one-on-one lessons. I never did Royal Conservatory, but I would play through the books. It was just a matter of, well, you don't need the certificates, you don't need to do the exams, you'll just do it at home. And so it was informal in that way, but yeah, it was just one-on-one piano lessons.
Boy, that is so fantastic. So you got some formal training, and listen, piano is in the percussion family. Yeah. So you already had your in at that particular point too, and playing piano, I'm sure, has been very helpful just from a musical standpoint when you're playing drums to kind of understand more about some of the theories and some of the concepts of music when you're performing as a drummer. That's fantastic.
What's really interesting? When I was playing piano, I never understood time signatures. I hated theory. I just didn't understand. I'm young. I was young. I was under the age of 10, and I'm thinking, I just want to play songs. At the time, I'm like, I don't care about theory, and I didn't understand time signatures and how they worked. And my teacher's trying to explain these things to me and work through theory with me. And for some reason, I just didn't get it. And I think my mind wasn't in the right place at the time. But it's funny because when I was a kid, and I would play these recitals, I would get these comments like, "Wow, you play things with such feel," and I'm like, well, it's because I'm not counting. Because I don't know how to count properly. I don't know what 4/4 even is, or if I was playing something in 13, I didn't know. So I was just playing what felt right, and rather than count. So it was really interesting. It wasn't until I started learning drums that I learned, rhythm theory and even time signatures.
But what a very natural way to learn, just to feel the music and to understand what it's about without the technical depth of understanding it at an early age, to kind of get that into who you are. Good start. Good start. So drumming now, so you get into school, and again, the music programs in school. How helpful was the music program in school for you?
For me, I had two music teachers, two band teachers, one in elementary school and one in high school. And both of those teachers, honestly, I really credit largely just for their passion, like instilling the passion in me. Especially my high school band teacher, Mr. K. That man was always so passionate. And even if it meant, you know, you might hear 5 stories, you know, in a lesson or in a class. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of that. I think a lot of students learn from, you know, they get that energy and excitement from their teachers. And my teachers were really good at, you know, if you needed help, that they would come to you, even if you weren't taking one-on-one lessons. I still felt like my school music teachers were really invested in each one of us. So I feel pretty fortunate that we had that.
So were you taking lessons, drum lessons in school? Were they teaching you some of the fundamentals and basics?
You know what? That was the only thing. That's the tough thing when you're a band teacher, is that you're trying to teach multiple instruments to multiple students at once. So, I mean, I didn't have one-on-one lessons per se. It was all in kind of a band context. However, especially my high school band teacher, you know, if we had questions or things outside of class, he was very, you know, always there for us if we needed, you know, how do I do this and stuff like that. But it wasn't so much like, hey, we're going through rudiments or doing things like that. It was still really, you know, we're kind of learning together. You're going to learn how to play these songs if you have questions about them, you know. But a lot of it is kind of figuring it out as you go along and asking your teacher when you need help.
Absolutely. So the kind of music you were playing, was it like band music? Was it concert music? What kind of band was it that was in the school? Yeah,
it was mostly concert music until I was a little bit, you know, in the upper level grades, where I was also in the school jazz band. So I learned how to play jazz and things like that. But, you know, occasionally we would do a fun piece that our teacher really wanted to do. So I remember I had never heard of Tower of Power. I didn't know who David Garibaldi was. I was probably 15 years old. And it, you know, it wasn't the style that I was listening to. And we played What Is Hip in class. And this was in, now I can't remember if this was in concert band or jazz. It would make more sense if it was in the jazz band. Concert, you know, we were doing a lot of like mallet percussion as well and timpanis. And that's where I was really learning, you know, to broaden my knowledge in percussion, not just the drum set. But I remember when we were learning What Is Hip, and I'm like, this is amazing. And I remember I started listening to Tower of Power because we were learning that song. And I'm like, this drummer is fantastic. And all this like syncopation and cool stuff. And include, you know, we did a simplified version of it. I'll just say, you know, I was no David Garibaldi, but it was still a great introduction to like that style and like really cool, like funky drumming.
That is fantastic. Hey, listen, I'm no David Garibaldi either. David is a dear friend of mine, and I have such respect and passion for his music and what he does. And as the song says, what is hip today will soon become passé. That is fantastic that you were playing and being influenced by that kind of music at a young age.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's really incredible when you think about just being exposed to that. You come out of school, did you end up taking any kind of private lessons at all? How did you develop from there?
Yeah, a lot of my development in drums was just by trying things. And I definitely, like, I didn't really have a formal drum education, I would say, outside of that band context. So I was playing in rock bands. I was watching other drummers and what they were doing. We didn't have YouTube at the time. So, I mean, I can't even imagine if we had access to everything people, young people do now. But yeah, I never took ongoing one-on-one lessons. I would occasionally take one here and there from maybe a local drummer that I liked, or, I was trying to work on a certain concept and I would say, hey, I know you're good at that. Can you show me how to do that? But yeah, a lot of my drum education has been very much self-taught. And I mean, also in high school, I was playing in school musicals where I was the drummer, and we did The Wiz. So that's a lot of that's like funk and disco drumming as well. So
you were not doing much reading at this. So you had to listen to the music and kind of play it along that way. Is that how you learned it?
So I could read drum music. That was the thing, because I had learned to read music from piano.
Absolutely.
So I could sight read. Okay. Although when I auditioned for the jazz band, when I went into first year university, they were like, I just didn't make it. And they're like, your sight reading just isn't quite there. And I'm like, I thought I was good at sight reading. Yeah. So anyway, I was no jazz drummer. I still am no jazz drummer. And it's just it wasn't like where my passion was. But yeah, so piano was the reason that I learned how to read music. I transferred that to drum music, drum notation. So I was able to do that. I was actually in a community youth concert band as well. I almost forgot. So, I mean, I didn't have one-on-one lessons, but I was very much learning in this kind of band group context.
And you were growing up where at this time? Were you in the Montreal area?
I grew up in Richmond, BC, just outside of Vancouver.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And you're in Montreal now, so that's where you were out in the West Coast. Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. So were there musicians that you started to play with? Were you jamming with anybody? Were there bands being put together?
Yeah, I've been playing in bands, like rock bands, garage bands, since I was 14 or 15. I mean, we used to play shows at community centers for other teens, things like that. So I was in a couple, I've been in bands since I was about 15. And so, throughout high school, I'd be kind of jamming with different groups. And after I graduated, throughout university, I was in different groups as well. I was trying different genres, mostly still kind of rock and alternative styles. But I was jamming with a lot of different people at the time.
Were there bands that you were being influenced by? Were there any larger, well-known bands that you really loved and enjoyed listening to?
Yeah, I was definitely a fan of Dream Theater, especially later on in high school. The first time I heard the double kick, it was another drummer at my high school, and he was younger than me too, and he's showing me all this stuff, and because he was even more into it than I was, and he showed me this Mike Portnoy solo, and I'm like, what's that, like helicopter sound or that like machine gun sound? And he's like, oh, it's like a double kick pedal or double bass.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to do that. That sounds amazing. So Mike Portnoy was actually one of my big influences in high school, and I was a big fan of Opeth as well a bit later on, and Martin Lopez specifically when he was drumming with them, because he had this kind of Latin, these Latin roots in his drumming, so he infused those with metal, and I thought that was just such a cool approach.
Boy, how great! And I know Mike Portnoy very well. Mike is a phenomenal player, and his influences were, of course, Neil Peart,
oh yeah,
John Bonham, Ringo Starr. I mean, he's got some very diverse influences that he's taken in. So, who would you say some of the influences were for you as far as different drummers that you've listened to? I
mean, definitely Portnoy for sure. Just because when I was kind of coming up as a young metal drummer, that was like my goal at the time. And yeah, Martin Lopez, Chris Adler, Lamb of God, also definitely really big for me, especially with like the double kick rhythms. When I started learning more about that, and I was listening to Lamb of God and listening to these rhythms, and I'm like, he's doing all these rhythms with his feet, not his hands, and I thought that was so cool. Yeah. And just I love like groovy drumming. I mean, I love like a good backbeat, and I love a good groove, something I can really like move to. That's my favorite style. That's my favorite style of drumming. So, all these guys, I think, were very groovy drummers, and there are a lot of backbeat stuff, but where they would do, interesting things in between.
Boy, how great. So with being a Canadian, were you at all into Rush at all? Was Russia part of that process of who you listened to?
I wish it was, I really wish it was, that I never gave them much of a chance until I was older. And it wasn't because I didn't want to, it was just, okay, I'm listening to all this other stuff. And I didn't have any friends at the time who listened to Rush. Now I have tons and tons and tons. And just how influential Neil was to so many people and so many drummers. And, I got into them and his drumming a little bit later. But so now I would say, okay, now I'm a lot more familiar with his style. Yeah. But I know as a Canadian, I'm mentioning all these American drummers, and I'm like, there's amazing Canadian drummers right here, but that's who I grew up with. Yeah, there
really are. There are so many Canadian drummers being Paul DeLong, Rick Gratton, Vito Rizzo. There's so many great. Listen, and just having been traveling throughout Canada, there are so many great players that are there, and it's just so great to see that there's such a strong energy in Canada for drumming and percussion, which is so exciting. And of course, as in the West Coast, now that Drumeo is such a big part of a leader in the global community of drumming, having them out there, they've organized many great Canadian drummers on the West Coast, and they've just absolutely enhanced Canadian drummers to a whole nother level. It's so exciting.
Oh, I love it. And of course, as a Canadian drummer, I'm so grateful that Drumeo is based in Canada, that, there's definitely, especially when Drumeo started, or before it was Drumeo and it was free drum lessons, and it was largely Jared and Dave and, some of the early guys. And then when they started bringing on drummers, a lot of them were like local, Vancouver, Abbotsford area drummers, and really highlighting, especially the West Coast. And then as it expanded and it grew and it started bringing drummers from across the country and other countries, and it's just become something that's so amazing. incredible platform from people from around the world.
It really is. It really is amazing. So in the area where you were playing, you know, where you grew up, you had different bands you were playing with. Did you go out and play in clubs? Was it that kind of a momentum that you had going on?
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely, I mean, very much grew up in this kind of alternative scene, you know, rock and metal and punk and stuff like that. So when I was too young for clubs, you know, we're playing at community centers and just like halls, like not city halls, community halls. And then, you know, a couple of years later, we were playing at local bars, pubs, restaurants, like whoever it was that would let you, you know, bring in your ska band or your rock band or whatever. So I never did the cover band thing. For some reason, I'm just thinking about that because there's so many good cover bands in Vancouver. But no, I mean, I was gigging and stuff, but it was usually like I'd have one band. I was like a one-band drummer, and I was just about, you know, I want to build something, and I write originals, and I want to, you know, tour the world with this band, and you know, but we were gigging locally. You know, we played once a month or.
Oh, that's fantastic to see. You know, this was from Jeff Kozel, talking about Emmanuel Caplet, another fantastic drummer, and she is just a great, and she's got some really strong rudimental chops that she does, and it's really kind of amazing to see the workings of what she does globally. Oh,
actually, living in Quebec now, there's a number of really good Quebec drummers. Emmanuel Caplet is one of them, and there's a couple of her rudimental routines that I'll practice on the pad as part of my routine. But I got them from her, and she's absolutely fantastic. And I've never met her, but I've heard she's a wonderful human being as well. So that just makes it even more awesome, you know, as somebody who can be very influential for the community.
She is. She's so great. I've done many performances with her, and she's such an intelligent, sweet, fantastic drummer and just a great musician. She really hears music at a very, very high level too. So it's just so great to see the energy that comes out of Canada like yourself. Now tell me about what happened now. So here you are now, how'd you hook up with Drumeo?
So I think I'd met Dave or I think Mike, a couple of the Drumeo guys, like a couple of years ago. We had this thing called West Coast Drum Scene, and a couple of the local, you know, pro drummers in Vancouver had put together this kind of group to get together, have some beers, talk shop. I think they had a couple sheds. Someone would, you know, come in and bring in their, you know, their snare or whatever. And there's just so many amazing people in the Vancouver area. So I met a couple of drummers that way, and I met some of the Drumeo guys that way. And then I was freelancing. So as a writer, and I, you know, my background's in PR, writing, marketing. So I was freelancing, and I was at NAMM, I think 2017 maybe. Anyway, I was at NAMM as an artist, and a couple of friends were friends with them, and so we kind of hung out with them, and we were talking, and I met their marketing manager, and he said, "Hey, so you're a writer and a drummer. You know, we could use somebody like that writing some articles for us." So a couple months later, I started writing some articles for Drumeo, kind of, you know, just as one of my many clients at the time, and everything was going great. And they said, "Hey, can we do more work with you?" I said, "Do you want to hire me?" So, you know, then I met up with Jared at NAMM the year after that, and we talked about what that would look like. So that's how I got connected with Drumeo.
So, content manager, you do these interviews, and you interview probably some of the greatest musicians in the world. It's a sweet job.
It's so cool.
Think about how great this is. Now, let's talk about the festival for a second. At the festival, it was a 2-day event of actual festival, and the third day was a masterclass that had happened with Tommy Igo, Jojo Mayer, and myself. And it was just so great. I mean, Jared and Dave are just fantastic people. Jared Falk, who had the vision for this concept of what he did, and David, of course, I think his right-hand man. Just what they put together is just so incredible. The amount of people that came to the festival, and just what a great time, right?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I didn't want to leave. Like it was a whirlwind though. I mean, it was so busy, and there was just so much going on, and it was incredible, especially considering, you know, it's the first year of a festival. I'm biased because I work for Drumeo, but just even as, you know, a drummer attending that festival, I would think by seeing it that this festival has been going on for years now. And it was just, you know, I think, and the team just did an amazing job with it. The artists were absolutely phenomenal, and the masterclass day, you know, I was there as well, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And just the camaraderie and just being in the same building is all these amazing drummers and, you know, people from around the world that came out to see incredible artists. And it's just such a fun time.
There were people that, like you said, literally came from around the world to come to this festival. It was intense. I had emceed the festival. We had so many great players that were there, and it was just an exciting time. But you had the chance then to sit down and interview some of these players. Yeah,
it was great. So one of the things I do in my role at Drumeo is I do these feature articles where it's kind of like letting an artist tell their story or one story that really impacted them. That they can share with other drummers to motivate them or, you know, warn them or whatever it is. So, I spoke to a couple of the drummers who were there and, you know, got some fantastic stories from them. And yeah, it was cool.
Well, now I got a couple lists of people that you sat down with. Now, tell me about when you sat down with Dorothea Taylor. This is a phenomenal story of she has gotten some incredible views on her YouTube stuff. I ask everyone to go there and check out Dorothea. She's just a phenomenal person, and she's a great player with great chops. She really plays fantastic with incredible accuracy. What was it like sitting down with her?
Oh, she's a wonderful person. First of all, she's just so open, I think, with everything, and she's so dedicated. I mean, you know, this is somebody, and she puts out so many videos, you know, so many different exercises on her Instagram, for example. I mean, she's someone who is like, she lives, breathes, eats drum. Well, not literally eats drums, but you know what I mean. So, yeah. So I mean, we talked about what it was like coming up. You know, being part of this drum corps when she was 16 years old, and you know, she would practice hours a day, and that she just surprised. You know, they had these judges kind of come out and I guess I don't have to say adjudicate, but they came out and they listened to people. They kind of had to audition to be part of this group, and they couldn't see who was playing, and so she was a new drummer at that time, and she came first. And everyone was absolutely shocked. So it was basically, you know, trying to earn her place in this drum corps, and what the first time she sat down on a drum kit and how she could play it, and how her parents were shocked, like, you know, you just got a drum kit and you've been just a snare drummer. How could you play it? And for her, you know, she really credited that to all of this work that she put into rudiments and learning the foundations of drumming and rhythms and sitting, you know, being a snare drummer and how much that helped.
Yeah. I mean, she's just a wonderful person. And I got to tell you something. Many of her exercises are not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, she really has incredible accuracy when she plays. And of course, having the Drumeo video that she did, it was just so great to hear her play and talk, and just the little routine that she went through was just so exciting and very, very helpful. Mm-hmm. So other female, then you sat down, I think at the festival, and sat down with Annika Niles.
That one wasn't at the festival, actually. That was before the festival.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That is actually one of my favorite features that we've done, because it's just so transparent. And I think that she really highlights a lot of the feelings that a lot of drummers and just artists in general deal with. And so she's talking about, you know, failure as a drummer and feeling like a failure. You know, you auditioned for this and you didn't get in. Well, now you need to work really hard to get there. But, you know, all the moments of feeling like, am I good enough? And, you know, it's just very real. It's very, very real.
Yeah. And
she's also obvious. I mean, everyone I've spoken to has just been I just love drummers. You know, drummers are just some of the nicest, most down-to-earth people ever. And so I get to interview all these, you know, top-tier world-class drummers, and everyone is just so nice and genuine.
What do you think it is? What is it about drummers that we get together and we talk, we hang out, we share ideas, unlike any other instrument? What do you think it is about drummers?
I used to joke and say it's because we're about the back. You know, we're all neglected, so we all bond over that. But I don't think that's actually what it is. I used to joke. Maybe a little bit for some of us, like rock drummers. But sure. No, I maybe it's that, you know, it's not easy to start drumming, you know, whether it means most people don't pick up on coordination, like independence and limb coordination right away. And I think people get discouraged from that. You do need to do it, you know, it's all about muscle memory and repetition. And I think a lot of people just can't, you know, people might be discouraged quickly. I think it's also the fact, you know, not being able to have a drum kit at home. It's easy to say, hey, I want to have a guitar. Okay, cool. I can bring this everywhere. It's portable. So I think it's just the fact that, you know, maybe there's just not as many drummers, and when we meet another one, we're really excited. And so I don't know, maybe that's part of it.
It's something must be, because when we had this drum festival to Drumeo, it was just jam-packed with people. I would go out during the course of the in-between artists, I'd walk out to see the crowd. And by going out to see the crowd, it was so great to meet them.
Sorry, my dog is howling. Sorry, give me a second. Sorry, anyone watching this as well.
That's all right.
She's a very good dog, but sorry, continue, dog.
So these drummers that get together, they share their ideas. The festival was incredible. Tell me about what it was like to sit down with Chris Coleman.
Oh, this guy, and I think he was still on he was just so, I think, just excited from all the energy and things like that. He's just such a positive energy to be around, and he's all, his story, he had to deal with some tough times, in all areas, and a lot of self-doubt, I think, as well, where, he's more of like a prodigious drummer, I think. He was very good at a very young age, and but feeling like, well, maybe drums aren't for me, when he was discouraged, and then when he won this, Guitar Center drum off, and realizing, like, holy cow, like, this is a game changer. Maybe this is, what my life will be, and things like that. But just sitting down with him in general was just absolutely fantastic. He just makes you want to smile, and he's just so positive, and yeah, he's a great guy.
He's such a great guy. We've done many things together. We performed together at a drum festival in Diest, Belgium. And he came out for the crowd and just played fantastic. And it was just so personal with them. And he opened the show at Drumeo. When that curtain opened up for the first artist on that, Friday morning to a sold out crowd, he just plowed through an exciting playing for 45 minutes of just intense playing with a smile always on his face, giving 110% all the time. It was incredible.
Oh, it was amazing. And I remember just like the excitement of opening, I think, and watching him the chops are incredible, the grooves are incredible. And he had such a dynamic performance too. We did a couple of songs, he was doing some soloing. There was just a little bit of something for everybody. It was great.
It really is amazing to see how these drum festivals and how these drummers get together. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've done probably every major drum festival in the world, and it's been exciting to see. And I'm still a student of the art form when I go by there. And as I did at the Drumeo Festival, I heard many, many great performers. And I got to tell you something, I got a lot of ideas and a lot of great inspiration from that show for myself, having done this a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
You sat down with Achilles Priester. Talk about Achilles Priester.
He's also somebody who's just an absolutely fantastic human being, and it was really cool because we did it after. So there's a guy named Seamus who and he does the Drumeo Gab podcast. So Seamus
is great, absolutely.
He's the man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Seamus and I had organized that at the Drumeo Festival. He would do an interview with the artist for this podcast, and then I would take over and I would record them telling their story for the beat. Yeah. And so Achilles had just finished his Drumeo Gab interview with Seamus. And I think he was just really so pumped from that interview. Like, Seamus is just such a fun personality, and he's asked such interesting questions. So I think coming down from that, Achilles was like ready to go, ready to talk about, his growing up, where he had to basically play on buckets and gas gallons, as a kid in Brazil, and he didn't, they didn't have the money to buy a drum set. And it was really, really cool.
I've known Achilles for many, many years, and I've done many performances with him throughout the course of my global travels. And he's such a nice guy, but he's a powerful player, really a powerful player. And he came out again at the Drumeo Festival and just plowed this crowd with, hard rock metal drumming with incredible energy. It's pretty amazing to see these players. It's like drumming Olympics when you start to watch someone like Achilles play, and even Chris Coleman and these guys. It's really, really amazing.
Oh yeah, and you look at like the endurance as well as the technicality, and you think drummers really are athletes. It's incredible.
Oh, absolutely. And Annika too, when she played, she played for an entire set. This is a real physical instrument, and it takes it to that level. Marco Minimum, what was it like interviewing Marco Minimum?
Oh, he's just again, everyone's so nice. All I can say, every single person say this person was fantastic. They were so nice. They were so positive. The energy was great. Same with Marco. I mean, Marco is he's a fascinating person too. I mean, he's got such a technical mind, I think, as well. He's, you can just tell just by talking to him how intelligent he is. Yeah. And he was also one of the people I interviewed who was talking about growing up and learning drums. And for him, it was like his first time playing on stage as 12 years old or however old he was, and he had to do a drum solo, and he's playing in front of all these people. And the first time that he was supposed to go and play, and then he got his mom to turn him back around and go home because he was so nervous about it. And just, and he talked about playing his first big drum festival where he was up there on his own, and he had these, I can't remember who he said was watching, but there were these drum legends watching him side stage, and he's like, uh-oh, like I better bring it. So even if somebody like Marco Miniman, who is just such he's so technically proficient, and he's just so he's just such an incredible drummer, it still has had these moments of being nervous and worrying, like, okay, I better do a good job. And some of us peasants, down here are like, all right, well, how can that guy mess up? There's no way that guy could mess up. So it's really cool seeing how down to earth people are, even when they're at the top of their game.
Boy, it's so great that you're doing these articles and these writing, and that you capture these stories from these artists. Because listen, I met Marco when he was like 17 years old, so I go back many years when he was a kid, and I remember those first festivals. I was there for most of them to see him produce it, and he always rose to the level, as all of these artists do. They rise to the level of what they're doing. It's so exciting to see everyone's different personality come through on not only how they play differently, but their setup is differently, how they tune the drums is differently. There really are signature sounds that each of these artists have that is just so exciting to see.
Yep, totally. It's like a reflection of each person.
Clearly, I mean, that's really where art is, to kind of deliver who you are through your instrument, and these all do it. But you talked about working on Tower Power, What Is Hip. What was it like sitting down with David Garibaldi?
David Garibaldi was the first interview I did for any of these, and it was before I was working full time at Drumeo, and when I remember when some of the other team members at Drumeo said, "Hey, do you want to interview David?" And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely." And I'm thinking, well, I haven't done these before. I'd interviewed other artists for like online magazines and things like that, but it had never been. I don't think I'd ever interviewed a drummer before. And David was just an absolute gem, I'd say. Again, a genuine, down-to-earth, fantastic person. And when I spoke to him, and I asked him what story he wanted to share, and he was willing to share the story of his train accident. And so I think it was, it was something he wanted. He was okay talking about, and he wanted to talk about. And so I think today, that's my favorite story that we've done, because it's just it's such a compelling story. It's something that, I don't expect a lot of people would necessarily want to talk about, something that almost,
David is I met David in 1976. I've known David for 44 years.
Wow.
And he has always impressed me as a person, as a musician, as just a sincere spiritual being who just is just an incredible giver of his talent and his knowledge. He's such an intelligent, player, the way he plays, and his feel is impeccable. I've heard him many times. He always just sounds great. He really makes the band feel so good. If you're not moving, tapping your foot or dancing to Tower of Power, you're dead.
Yeah.
It's over. Lay down, get the flowers, dig the trench. Nice talking to you. You're finished. It really is how Garibaldi plays.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting too. Anytime somebody says, "I don't want to learn rudiments," I say, watch his hands. Watch it. The stuff he does in the hi-hat and the snare. If you learn your rudiments, you'll be able to start doing that kind of thing. Being creative on the drum set with just some cool like ghost notes and things that maybe you wouldn't have come up with otherwise.
Absolutely. And of course, all of his books are fantastic. I teach out of all of them. So, I mean, you've had the chance to sit down with some pretty influential legends. Let's try one more. Todd Zuckerman. What was it like with Todd Zuckerman?
I feel like when I so the way that I do these interviews is it's not a typical interview where I'm asking a whole bunch of questions and, the artist is answering each one individually. It's like, all right, can you tell me about a time, a story that really inspired you or concerned you or whatever, something that maybe shaped you or your career or something that was impactful. And with him, I don't even think I really had to, I basically wrote everything down word for word. I mean, he's such a natural storyteller, and this story that he decided to share is just such a big part of him, I think, as a drummer. I mean, he talked about joining Styx and under what circumstances that happened. And I just thought, he was just very open about it, and it was awesome talking to him.
He's a great, great person. I mean, Todd is I've had a chance of performing with him several times on stage. He's just such a great player. He gives his all when he plays. And that's one thing about drummers. There is this community of drummers that absolutely blows me away when it comes to just the energy of, how we connect with each other. We have on people that have joined us, we have people from Russia, from Brazil, all throughout Canada, all throughout the US. We've got people that are watching us right now. Here's a question from a wonderful drummer in the Miami area. His name is Carlos Gutzman. He's a phenomenal player himself. He was with a band many years ago called the Lettermen, which was a trio singing group that was very, very well known at that time. And now he's doing production management. He works with Barry Gibbs on his mystery tour, which is so fantastic. So he's a phenomenally active person. But he says, Samantha, what is your drumming bucket list? Look for the next 5 years. Any goals that you would like to accomplish as a musician? What are you thinking about that you might want to do? Carlos, great question. Samantha, what would you say to that?
Oh, man. I mean, great question. Some of my goals have to do with drumming specifically. Like, if there's certain skills that I want to improve upon, and there's other things that are more stage-wise. So I'd say, as a drummer, I really want to improve my independence. It's something that, I grew up playing a lot of punk rock and metal and rock and things where, I feel like, I really want to improve my hi-hat, my left foot hi-hat independence, especially because I'm so used to having both feet on the double pedals, right? Because I've been playing that for over 10 years, really focusing on that. So one of my big goals is to improve my left foot on the hi-hat and play some styles other than, just more like the heavy stuff I've been playing. More on the, as a musician or as a member of a band, I mean, I would love to play some of these big festivals in Europe. I mean, there are these festivals where, 100,000 people come.
Absolutely.
So I would love to play on some of those stages. That's definitely one of my goals, but that's something that, that's out of my control. So I just have to play with bands that will hopefully play those festivals. And I'm just trying to think. Also just for me, I think just filming myself more. I'm trying to do that when I can, even just to see, what do I need to improve upon, or I think something sounds good, and then I listen back or I watch and I say, well, that seems a little bit off. So I'm trying to do that more. It's something that I wasn't doing enough of before. So I'd say that maybe it's not a super exciting goal for other people, but for me, it's definitely a goal to. I need to set some numbers and say, all right, I'm going to do one a week, or I'm going to do one a day, or whatever it takes.
Well, I tell you, those are goals that are reachable. If you hook up with a band that is committed and putting their time into learning original tunes, there are tons of festivals. And again, the festivals, when we get back to having festivals, when we get back to the insanity of where we are. Carlos, thank you so much. Let's talk about that now. We're in this pandemic. We have had this challenge since March. We were fortunate to have the Drumeo Festival at the end of February. The timing could not have been any better for the fact that we had this festival. Everyone gathered. We were, 1,000 people together, hugging and kissing and just kind of how you doing, the typical drummers. Then this thing hit in the early part of March. How have you dealt with this, and how have you been dealing with this pandemic?
Mm-hmm. I remember at first I was like, oh no. How long is this going to last? I had all these tours planned this year. I was supposed to tour in Europe. I was supposed to tour across Canada. I was supposed to do a US, maybe a week in the US later in the year. So, I thought, well, I hope those things still happen. I mean, of course they didn't, and they won't, unfortunately, not this year. But I had just got an electronic kit a week before the lockdown. And am I ever fortunate that I had that? Because my studio space where I have my drum set got got closed. So I couldn't access my drums for several months. And I probably would have gone nuts if I couldn't do anything. But I had that electronic kit at home, and I've got my practice pads at home as well. So I basically said to myself, hey, I have fewer distractions right now. I can't play gigs. All these plans I had are canceled, or I don't know what's going to happen in the near future. So I said to myself, I can at least try and be a better player. So I just started playing, practicing on the electronic kit or on my pad every single day at home. And before that, I really wasn't making the time, I think, to do the daily practice all the time. I go through a couple of weeks where I practice every day, and then I'd have a couple busy weeks or months even where I'd only get to play a couple days a week. So when this all started, I was playing every single day, and I said, I'm going to work through this. And, I got my buddy's book, and I started, working through the start of that. And a couple of things, trying to meet goals and do things and work on skills that I just had never made time for before. And I just felt really motivated. And I think it's because I just had fewer distractions. And one thing that really kept me motivated actually is just other drummers. So staying connected with other drummers is really, really important. And we're still doing it. I've been really busy this last couple of weeks. I'm working on a new album with one of my bands, but a couple days a week, So my buddy Alex Cohen, who's also in New York, he started doing these online kind of rudimental or practice pad kind of workouts with some other drummers. So, we would do a couple of us, a couple of days a week, we'd get together and video chat, and, like Alex would put on the click and, say, hey, let's try this. And then we'd all do it together, and we'd say, we're going to do this for 1 minute, or we're going to do this, we're going to do left-hand lead, or we're going to do, So practicing with other drummers just remotely has been amazing. Really, really, really helpful.
So how do you keep yourself motivated? What is it that you do that allows you to keep this fire burning, especially even through this pandemic?
Well, the ways I motivate myself, I don't think will work for everybody, because it's funny because I'm such a positive person, but it's because I try to set no expectations, because I find that if I set my expectations too high, if those expectations aren't met, I will be easily disappointed. So I just say, I have no expectations for this. Or, I tell myself, when I get back to playing live or whatever, when I do this recording, if I don't practice all the time, I'm going to let myself down, or I might, I don't want to let anybody down. My big thing is I don't want to let anyone down. I want to make everyone happy. I want to be a good drummer. I want other people to, I want that to be reflective of where I am as a player. So nice. I do have to kind of tell myself, don't embarrass yourself. You got to be good. It's just kind of nagging in the back of my head. So that doesn't work for everybody. A lot of people really have to be positive with themselves and say, you can do it, blah, blah, blah. But for me, it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of like, well, if you don't do this, there will be consequences. You got to practice every day. And, some people who like to say, you don't practice a day, you notice. If you don't practice for 2 days, your band notices. If you don't practice for 3 days, everyone notices. And a couple people, will kind of take that approach. So that approach really works for me. I just tell myself, I want to succeed, and in order to succeed, I need to practice, and I need to work, and I need to, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't hurt anybody else. It just makes you better.
Boy, that's a great personal constitution to have, and that's something which is really what we call the constant student.
Yes.
The continual learner. That really is one of the secrets of being able to stay fresh and current at what you do, which is so great. So during this pandemic, you have improved probably tremendously since this pandemic. Then you've grown so much, right? Oh yeah.
It's really something. There's just been little things where I just never took the time to focus on. And now that I've taken the time to focus, but it also reminds me how many more things that how much more I don't know yet, how much more. But again, it's the perpetual student. The more you know, the more you know you don't know.
Boy, that is for sure. You've been with Mapex a couple of years. What kind of Mapex kit do you have?
I have a Saturn V, and I absolutely love it. And for anyone not familiar with the Saturn series, it's the maple walnut, absolutely amazing sound. And I have a sledgehammer snare that I absolutely love, because it just delivers such volume and such precision, and because I play heavy music for the most part, it's just great. It packs such a punch. And oh man, what was I going to say? Oh, also, if anyone's watching and they're not sure if what kit to get or whatever. I mean, the Saturns, I love combining the like kind of warmer tones of the wood with like a clear head, like I use the Evans G2 usually, or with the clear heads and the slightly shallower toms. So you still get a lot of that attack, but you have that really warm shell. So I'm a huge fan. I love my Saturns.
Well, this kit back here this blue kit back here is the Saturn V, and
nice.
This one on the other side is the Saturn IV. Both kits sound fantastic, and then the new drums that have come out. I had the chance to interview Mark Bennett, who's the artist relations manager, and in the U.S., and he just explained all about these new Saturn, the Evolution, which is the birch. I mean, they've got some great Saturn kits that have hit the scene, and they've got a ton of snare drums that at the NAMM show, every one of them I hit, I was blown away by the uniqueness of each of the individual sounds that it had. It really was absolutely incredible. Oh,
for sure. And I love that even, that just how familiar people, even if they aren't as familiar with the Mapex brand, but they've probably played a Mapex snare.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many options. There's something for literally everybody. It's in every configuration that you could possibly want, that Mapex has a snare for it. And I love that. And I mean, I'm going to go in the studio in a couple of weeks, and I'm still just trying to decide, like, okay, well, like, what do I want? What do I want to try out on the song or whatever? And it's just amazing. And they're always coming out with new stuff, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's a wonderful company. I've got a question here I'm going to ask you here. This is from Jeff Towers. Jeff Towers is a wonderful, person and player himself. Sam, what are the challenges you face as a female in this industry? And what's some of the advice you can give to up-and-coming ladies and females in the drumming community? Great question, Jeff. Thanks.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's really, everyone's experiences seem to be different. Some people will say, it's been tough, and other people will say, no, it's been really, seamless and it's been great. I've received a lot of support. I find that a lot of people who are confident in their playing are less likely to judge you negatively. So, for the up and coming, girls and women who are drummers, if you do get negative comments, or you have people telling you can't do it, or they tell you like, pretending it's a boys club, things like that, it's just not everyone's like that. And it's just that for me, it was about proving people wrong, because I did receive comments like that early on, and I don't get as many anymore. And I think that also YouTube, especially highlighting more of the, that there's more of us out there than maybe were originally visible, maybe in the mainstream media or in mainstream bands, things like that, or in magazines, 20, 30 years ago. Some of the challenges I faced, mostly I think is just like it's like the judgment before you play. It's the kind of assuming that you're not going to be a capable player. And I don't really know where that comes from. And, maybe it's that it's like people that will judge an entire group based on one person. So if somebody sees a woman drummer and she's not super technical, or she's not, an experienced drummer, and then they say, well, all lady drummers are like that. And I think it's just really important to put yourself out there. And I know that not everyone's comfortable doing that. And you just have to kind of roll with it, and you have to prove, well, you shouldn't have to prove, but just by being visible, show that we're out there. And there's a lot of us. There's really a lot more of us, I think, than people might think.
Absolutely. There are more female drummers. I've got more female students, and I got to tell you something. My female students are some of my best students because they learn faster, they play better, and many of the females are into dance. And drumming is kind of like that movement of dance, and they learn the techniques easier and better than many of my male students, who are very macho and stiff and tight the way they move. And it's really kind of amazing to see how great it's been to have all these great leaders. Cindy Blackman Santana is another phenomenal girl that I've interviewed recently. Phenomenal player. So it's really starting to kind of open up and have these great players like Dorothea and Annika that we talked about, and Emmanuel Caplet. There are so many great female drummers that are coming out that are starting to make a great sentence and a great statement that is just so beautiful.
Oh, I just can't wait to see where we are in 10 years, 20 years, especially. And girls used to be discouraged from learning drums. That's the other thing. It's just like, why aren't there as many women drummers in maybe their 50s or 60s who have been drumming that whole time? Well, a lot of people's teachers discourage them.
Absolutely, man. And they were discouraged, but now times have changed, and it's about time that the women are making their voice loud and clear. Jeff, thank you so much. Great question. I've got another question here. Let's see. We'll go down here from Keith. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Keith, but I'll take it from there. How does the feeling of being away from Vancouver change, or does a new location create a fresh perspective? Are there any pros and cons that you could share as far as making the move from West Coast to East Coast?
Yeah, for sure. I think in general, musicians or not, moving to a new location is going to be different. If this is the first time I've lived in a different region from my hometown, my home area, I think it's just a matter of being, mentally prepared. I like to be mentally prepared and do my research and see, like, what am I going to expect? Talk to people who live there, things like that. Read articles. I mean, it's probably overkill for me, but I still do it because I like to be prepared. So I think that's the main thing. Just do your research. But as a musician, especially, it can be tough to break into a new scene and a new community, especially if you're a regularly gigging musician. You're looking for local opportunities, local gigs. So I think in that sense, go to local concerts, go to performances, try and introduce yourself to other players, introduce yourself to other drummers and other guitarists and whoever, trying to kind of break in that way. Just be a nice person, be approachable, be genuine. And there's message boards, there's Facebook groups, there's lots of pages and stuff where you can kind of meet people online maybe before you grab a coffee with them in person or something.
Yeah. So Kevin, thank you so much. So when you moved to Montreal, how did you connect with certain musicians? You just go to clubs and hang out and start meeting people and just start networking?
That's basically how I do it. However, I did have a couple of friends in Montreal already, and one or two especially, who were already very connected with the local community, like music community, metal community. So one of them was just out, anytime that I was at a gig or something, they would be introducing me to everyone because that person she really knows everybody. So she would be introducing me and saying, this person, this is Sam, she just moved, introduced me as a drummer, and people very quickly, kind of came to know me. And then another person who's very, very involved more on the musician side, also introducing me to other people and saying, hey, let's all get together, come on out to this thing. And, I think just being a friendly, approachable person myself has really helped. But I mean, I'm really outgoing and very extroverted. Not everyone has that. So it can be a bit more challenging. So for those people, I think just, maybe it's going to be more comfortable to chat with people online first and then maybe meet them. But if you're like me and you're just really friendly and like to chat people's ears off, then go to your local gigs and introduce yourself to people. Great. And see what happens.
So what is it? So personality-wise, I mean, you're very outgoing. You're very, are you more of an extrovert than an introvert?
Definitely. Even if there's situations where I might be a bit quieter, like, I don't know, we're in a group where people are talking about something that doesn't really concern me or something, sure, I might be a little bit, more reserved, but no, I'm 100% extroverted. I thrive on, people, being around people. And it's funny how I've had people comment, well, you already did this thing today and then you went to that thing and you still want to go out? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. They're like, I would want to stay at home in bed with a book, and go to sleep and, or just chill with a movie. And I'm like, no, I want to go out to this gig after all this other stuff I've done today. It just energizes me.
Boy, good for you. Good for you. The time flies by, and I got one more question for you. What is it that you could say to this next generation with all the advantages that they have with all this great, information that's out there? Actually, Brandon Koo talked about this here. He said, Drumeo Festival is the best thing that happened so far in 2020. Next thing, Modern Drummer Festival in 2020. So these festivals that are happening, it's just so great to have drummers that get together. Thank you, Brandon. Drummers that get together and put this together. There's opportunities out there. What would you say to a young person, or that wants to try to step into this crazy industry?
Ooh, just do it. If you have self-doubt, try and try and convince yourself that it's going to be okay. And you know what? It's the whole Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's like, you just have to sometimes take these risks and just do it. And even if it means you're just doing it for fun, and it means maybe it's not your career, but you're doing it because it's fun. Just just to do that. And there's such resources out there today. There's YouTube, there's Drumeo, there's, all these different places that you can go to learn, to connect with other people and talk with other drummers. Like I think this community of drummers is so amazing. And I find that it's very welcoming to people. And I think that, if you have questions, there's no stupid questions, and if somebody says you have a stupid question, then they're the one who's in the wrong, or they shouldn't be in this group, but just ask, learn, question things, don't be afraid to take risks, do things your own way. It's okay to, if you're going to do something unconventional with the drums, or you're learning, then, there's no wrong way to play drums.
Well, that's great advice. It's to be an individual and to have the confidence and courage in going for it. You are a great example of that. You are doing it. You are involved with not only the performance end, you're practicing, you're keeping your skills at a high level. You're writing these articles, with this content that you're putting for Drumeo. I mean, you really are kind of like in the thick of many areas of the drumming industry.
Oh, it's so cool. It's just really, really cool that I can say like drums are my life now, and I'm very, very fortunate to be in this position. I'm fortunate to be able to talk to you right now. So grateful for Mapex as well for all the support, and it's been a wild ride, and I'm really excited.
Well, I've got a feeling we're going to be hearing a lot more about you as days come by, and as we experience more drumming excitement with more different festivals around the world. Thank you so much, Sam Landa. You have got a great spirit. You are helping the drumming community to move forward, and it was great to have some time that I sat down with you when you interviewed me. That was so great to have that opportunity together that we had in our time in Vancouver.
Oh, thank you so much, Dom. It's an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Thank you so much. Send all my best to everybody at Drumeo. We'll see you real soon, Sam. Thank you so much. All that have tuned in today, thank you so much for your time, and we've had people from all around the world. Thank you, Sam, so much. Please be safe, all right?
Thank you. Take care, Dom.
Thank you, dear. Bye-bye.